Mr. Paul Farrington, how are you, pal?
Mr. Gavin McAnally, I am very well, mate. How are you keeping?
Do you know what? Other than the shit news and the reason that we're doing this today, I'm keeping okay. Everybody's healthy. I've got a job. Can't complain too much. But as I say, the reason that we are doing this is because
we're going to have to pull the plug. Damnation 2020 is not going to be happening.
No, it's not. It's more of a confirmation than a big reveal. I mean,
yeah, it's not going to be like the biggest surprise in the world to anyone. Like anyone who looks outside their front door might have seen there's a little thing going on outside. So,
but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I was a wee bit more optimistic than you were throughout this year from when I started. I'd hoped we could possibly get away with something, that we could have done a small UK, get Ackercock and Nathrak and Onslaught were ready to play. Well, you were a bit more pessimistic right from the start.
We chatted about that. Was it probably in May? Was it May or early June? We kind of said, look, if we really push ourselves, we could pull together a UK-based Damnation in 6-7 weeks if we just come to get UK bands. And you just kind of look at it now. They've done one Frank Turner show that lost all its money because Frank Turner played for free. And it's like, it's not going to work. There's no way. Could you imagine trying to do that at Damnation, having a socially distanced Damnation?
It would be, no. But we always agreed from the start, there was never going to be any sort of, let's try and get folk in bubbles. There was never going to be, trying to be, let's keep a few in the balcony and the idea of any extreme metal band playing and not being able to get a pit together or people crowd surfing. And then our day would have been hellish anyway, because if we had a venue that were willing to allow that to happen, but it was going to be a case of no mosh pits or no crowd surfing, but we're going to spend our entire day acting like security guards.
No, we've tried that before. We've had things when they've been kind of complaining about people coming in and pushing it onto the Riley Smith Hall and trying to police that and move people through the crowd. And it's just not worth the hassle.
No.
But also, if you think about it, we get a lot of bands who come over and they're doing it as part of a tour, flying from America. They do a couple of dates in the UK and then into Europe. The problem they're going to have is, so even if the UK said, okay, everything's fine, have Damnation. If France have said we're not having shows and Italy have said they're not having shows or wherever, you're just not going to get bands flying in and doing tours. So we weren't going to get the quality of bill that we're used to putting together.
Okay, which takes us to today then. So we've made the decision. We said, right, okay, if the 8-week mark, if it's definitely not happen, no progress, we'll have to bite the bullet. So what does that mean for fans in terms of the ticket? You handle the ticketing for Damnation via Eventbrite. So what does this all mean?
Right. So I suppose at this stage, people have kind of one of two choices. They can either request a refund or they can have us roll the tickets over to next year. And whichever option is obviously entirely their choice. If they want a refund, I'm going to be dealing with the refund side of it first, because you kind of have to do it. If you want to roll people over, you have to do it before the event happens, because you can't start doing it in the middle of November going, we'll change your ticket to an event from 2 weeks ago. Eventbrite doesn't know that. So what we'll do is we'll deal with the refunds, and there's two ways people can get refunds. They can either log into their own Eventbrite account where they have their tickets stored, and there's a little button in there that says request a refund, and then that'll come through to me, and then I just go authorize, and then the money goes back to them. Or if they can't find their Eventbrite login details, they could just email me directly with the email address that they bought the tickets through and their name, and then I can search for them manually through the system and then issue a refund.
Okay, and in terms of rollovers,
so I'd say we'll probably do that till about the start of October time. Gives people a month to kind of make that decision whether they want a refund or not. And then from October, I'll set up tickets for 2021, and then people will get transferred across. Anyone who hasn't decided they want a refund will then get transferred over, and they should get issued new tickets at some point during October for Damnation 2021.
Yeah, and let's face it, if you're listening, watching, you're a fan of Damnation and you've bought your ticket, you come to us December, January, whenever, and say, by the way, I fucked that up and I really need my money back, because we're going to give them the money back. So
yeah, of course.
There's not going to be any hard doubt, but for the technicalities of it, for the idea of what Eventbrite need, and you can't just hold on to a ticket, there needs to be some sort of cut-off point. So we're saying at the end of this month, the start of October.
Yeah, start of October. We'll start the process of kind of transferring people over, rolling over onto the tickets. Refunds, as soon as they start coming through, I'll start processing them.
Yeah.
On my own, and obviously, this is only kind of a part-time thing for both of us. It might take me a couple of days to get around. If there happens to be lots of people wanting refunds, it might take me a few days to get them processed, but they'll all get done.
Yeah. I mean, also I do these podcasts to have fun and enjoy myself, and this isn't a great topic. So let's leave that as a negative part of this whole deal. For next year, we haven't. There's a bunch of bands 100% locked in, but it's likely we're going to continue to keep Pig Destroyer, Pallbearer, and Onslaught, the three big ones. We will try and talk to the rest of the bands, see who we can keep on. Most people are doing a copy and paste job into 2021.
Yeah.
So, but we've got some decent news today. Not that we can mention any of the bands, but there's a super package that's kind of involved.
Absolutely.
Three pretty great bands that we might get the thumbs up to go away maybe by mid-September, so it'd be great. Andy listening and wondering, oh shit, well, what am I getting if I continue to do my rover? By mid-September, not only should we be able to present you the bands we'll be able to keep, but also hopefully these at least three new bands who we're particularly excited about.
And it's pretty good because none of them have played before, so it's three brand new bands. It's quite a nice mix of bands actually as well. So it's kind of a black metal band, death metal band, doom project. So it's a nice mix as well, which kind of suits Damnation.
It's good. And I've seen plenty of requests for all three bands as well. So that'd be fantastic to be positively. You know what I mean, say like,
exactly.
This is a bit of a shitty time for everyone, but not only are we coming back with the biggest bands that you'd paid your ticket money for this year, but also with some great bands that we can put on top of that.
And what's quite nice though as well is, I suppose, we had 700 people who bought tickets, and we hadn't even announced a headline yet. I think you mentioned that when you were chatting to Gordon from Speedhorn in the last podcast, that it's like we hadn't even got around to announcing any of the headliners yet for the 4 stages. So even getting those three bands back, Pig Destroyer, Pallbearer, and Thingy, Onslaught, is quite a nice starting ground for us. With then when you add in the headliners on top of it, it's going to be a good year. I mean, it's a rough one for us because I mean I'm the financial side of Damnation, but I mean we've both been involved for a lot of years, and you kind of treat it like your baby as well. And this would have been, we've kind of, as I said in the previous, we've got a wee bit of a cult following now. You put tickets on sale, people just buy them, and the fact to get 700 tickets sold so quickly in a few weeks was, I mean, there was no doubt that this year was going to sell out. I mean, absolutely.
It'd have to have been a completely different trend, and that was before we'd even announced the headline band. So it's a real soul one. Come November 2nd, it's going to be tough to know that we should have been in that venue watching Pig Destroyer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's real odd because this, for me, from the bit I kind of do the main part of what I do for Damnation, this is when I'm at my busiest. In terms of the production side of things, this is when you're getting all the band tech bits through, and you're usually up through the middle of the night trying to kind of sort out which band needs which drum kit and all of these kind of bits and pieces. And now at the minute I'm just kind of sitting around with nothing to do. It feels really odd not having a Damnation to plan.
You should start the podcast.
You got there ahead of me.
That fills the time quite nicely. Now, talk to finances. Now, people might be. We've seen a lot of our friends' festivals. They'll get massive overheads. These outdoor ones that are not comparable to Damnation in any way. We don't have massive overheads, but there's still going to be costs. There's going to be losses this year. We're going to have accountancy costs. We're not going to be able to avoid. There's going to be web hosting costs. There's a bunch of hotel rooms that foolishly I was very organised in booking, non-refundable.
Which is really odd for you because usually booking hotel rooms is quite a last minute planning thing.
And normally book hotel rooms the night before Damnation, so that was a bit of a pisser that I kind of get done for that. There's Facebook advertising we don't have to pay for. Probably a couple of grand that will get lost. Nothing that's going to jeopardise.
Nothing that's going to leave you homeless.
Nothing that's going to leave me homeless. But at the same time, I would like to mark something for the 2020 year. An idea I had was one of these festival T-shirts, the Damnation 2020. But it's every band that we have ever had play on the back, in a style of a download or a Hellfest. Which I think would look incredible. I'd love it. It'd be something to mark that year. So I'm keen to get that done. But when I was trying to draw up a wee outline, I was thinking, well, who's the biggest 3 bands? Who's the top? If you're thinking that'd be Tool, Slipknot, and Iron Maiden, who's Tool, Slipknot, and Iron Maiden?
Oh, who are our 3? Oh God, I think you have to have Bolt Thrower in there because that year was just insane. Carcass probably because I think 2008 was the year that everything changed for Damnation. Everything just went completely sideways. And then you probably would have to have Opeth at the third one. Because
my initial thinking was the excitement of, and plus it being quite an extreme festival, my thinking was Bolt Thrower, Carcass, At the Gates, having them in it. Yeah. But when I started to think about it, it's like the 3 obvious choices, if you were to try to do it in a realistic, would be Creator, Opeth, and Devin Townsend.
Yeah.
I mean, they would be, now we're just going to need to accept that the Bolt Throwers, the Carcass, that maybe the way Hellfest do it under sort of death metal or extreme metal.
Yeah.
But it's it'll be a cracking t-shirt. Hopefully, we'll see what the interest like. People so far, people have been just offering us their money. Just keep my ticket money,
which is really nice of them.
It is nice of them, but as I said, we're not interested in that. We're not that desperate that we need people's handouts. But we would I'd like to have merch for this year. Folk have expressed an interest in getting merch for this year, so we'll get something. We'll get something done up and get that merch out. So that's kind of.
I was just thinking about the t-shirt, and I don't know if you're planning on having any kind of booking agents on yet. But obviously, just how booking agents is very particular with where bands are billed on posters and who goes higher up. Just trying to deal with.
I thought of that.
Big promoters kind of going.
I thought of that. I fucking can imagine having a fight with an agent about a fantasy lineup. It's like, guys, this isn't an actual event. It's just a wee bit of a fundraiser. I guarantee there's some agent that goes, do you know Skindred should actually be higher up in that bill? Like, unfortunately, what do you want from me, man? I'm hoping as well, just did you remind me about the merch? If it did well, I'd like to offer something to like a Leeds music charity, or just a token. Like, we've got a lot of support for the Leeds crowd, and it's our home for that weekend, so we'll probably give that some thought as well. I probably shouldn't have said that because I'm not thought through.
I think that sounds like quite a good idea. Yeah.
That would be good. So which will shame the agents when they're trying to get their band bumped up a fantasy bill. So let's go back to the start. You're on here now. I wasn't going to have you as a guest, but you get
which is fair enough, because all I do is usually cause you problems. So reasonable to know.
We had news to break, so you're here now. So let's tell me about, how did you get involved in Damnation? You must have told me this drunk, but I don't remember.
Right. So I've been kind of knocking around from pre-Damnation, because obviously the whole thing started on the Download Festival forums as a kind of an idea, and both you and I were on that, and that we had a whole little community, which is where obviously the idea of Damnation started from. First year I missed for some reason or other, but from the second year on, when we were at Gillies, I ended up kind of stage running or show running and stuff like that. I remember running around Manchester trying to find a bottle of Jack Daniels for the Haunted, and I hadn't got a clue where any of the shops was. I remember just bolting out of Gillies and trying to run around the streets trying to find an off license or something somewhere, because at that point the Haunted said they weren't going to go on stage without this bottle of Jack Daniels. And I suppose you know, like when you haven't got a clue how to promote, and that's your second event or whatever, you're just kind of going, give the bands whatever they want and just agreeing with it. So I kind of was doing kind of show running for the first couple of years. Then, trying to remember, 2008, the Carcass year, you had me stage rep the main stage, to be the artist liaison on the main stage. And then kind of from 2008 onwards, the role has kind of generally increased to kind of cover all the boring technical bits that go behind Damnation. You get to spend the money, and I'm the one who has to sit there and kind of tell you what's actually practical and possible.
When I found that you could tell the difference between a guitar amp and a drum kit, I was like, you're the man for production. You can sort this out. So I mean, so now you're, as you say, like there is only you and I who organise Damnation. Really has been for the last 8 to 10 years. We used to have quite a big team, had a couple of press officers in between, but it's been you and I organising it, and then Bry's like our silent partner when it comes to the graphics. The graphics for this podcast, the graphics are all behind me. The merch will be Bry's responsible for everything you see, but he plays no part whatsoever and wants no part whatsoever in booking. And sometimes he shows up to Damnation on the day at 6 o'clock drunk and says, listen, I've played my part, it's up to you guys to run it. So
run the whole thing, yeah.
You've become the other major part of Damnation in those recent years, and especially when it comes to production. Now, if I get a production query or a complaint more often than not on the day, I've got no idea. But you do. So talk us through what you do in advance for these bands, and then what ultimately falls to shit in the day because they don't read the stuff.
So obviously you'll do the majority of the band booking and the direct liaison with the bands, kind of agreeing fees, flights, whatever it kind of is. And then once all of that's been agreed, I'll then start to get involved. I'll link in with either their booking agent or their manager or someone from their record label and get them to start sending through the kind of backline specs and lighting plots and all the different things, the things that they want to make a show happen for whatever band it is. And if it's a UK-based band, it's usually a lot easier because they'll bring a lot of their own gear themselves. If it's a fly-in show, we'll usually have to sort all the backline for them. So that can be anything from obviously drum kits, guitars, guitar amps, bass amps, right the way through to specific lighting plots and candles and all sorts. Anything to do with the production of the show, they'll kind of send through to me. So usually by about this time of the year, we'll have our lineup completed. So I'll have 28 of these or 29 of these from kind of different bands. And then it's up to me to kind of obviously divide them out amongst the stages and see how we can get as much of their production needs met as we can to give them the best show possible within reason. Because at the end of the day, if we gave every band exactly what they wanted, then we'd have 20 different drum kits sitting around, and Damnation just doesn't have the space or capacity to hold all this extra backline. So you try to be as flexible as you can, try to be as accommodating as you can in terms of the backline, in terms of what's going to appeal to the most bands. And what I've kind of noticed over the last 4 or 5 years, as Damnation has kind of grown and the top end of the bill has kind of grown, it's made the production, from my point of view, a lot more difficult. Back in 2008, 2009, 2010, when we weren't getting as many big bands, it was a little bit easier because the bands were less demanding. But when you now have, last year, when you have Mayhem, who are a headline band in their own right, well, they want full headline specs. They want everything exactly how they want it. You have Opeth obviously want all their own backline, and the more and more you get those kind of bands, the more you're going to come up against that. So then you're trying to fit 2, 3 full sets of backline into a very kind of tight contained space, and that kind of makes it a little bit tricky. So it makes for lots of difficult phone calls and conversations with agents, and kind of getting shouted and sworn at and told that I'm not good enough and that's not acceptable, and kind of just lots of negotiating back and forth and lots of headaches. But it's worth it in the end, I'd like to think.
Yeah, like always that expression in your face when I know for a fact the band's been told that under no circumstances can they bring their drum kit on, because, well, not only is it not possible, but it's been agreed, it's been signed off by their man, sometimes signed off by the guy who's playing the fucking drums, and he come up and, I'm just not playing with my drums. You're like, how can this be happening?
So we have that, like, well, we'll send out to all of the bands a good 6 weeks or 2 months before the event. We'll send out, like, for the main stage, all the main stage bands will get, here's the production sheet, here's your arrival time, here's all the backline that's been hired in that you will be using. And then if there's headline bands, we'll say full changeover for all of the headline bands, and that'll be sent out and go, is that agreed? Please sign back saying yes, we agree it. And that's our kind of written contract or agreement for the day. And that's usually what I'll kind of fall back on. So when a band are kind of saying, well, no, you should have 2 extra guitar cabs, or I want 4 bass amps or whatever, say, well, this is what you agreed. The problem is, a lot of the time it's not signed off by the band. They've never seen it, so they don't actually care. All they want is their extra 4 bass amps or extra 2 drum kits or whatever it is. So we had that a couple of years ago with High on Fire, who had signed off that they weren't bringing their own drum kit, and then they were just rocked up and loaded up the whole drum kit and said, we're not going on unless we have our drum kit.
Yeah, I mean, on the day, I mean, we've got a cracking crew from the venue, and we've got a cracking crew of our own, and everybody pitches in. But it's one of those examples with a festival. It really doesn't matter how much organisation or how professional you think you are beforehand, because if the guy, I mean, you need to take, I don't know High Fire's manager. I don't know if he talks to the drummer or who. So by the time you find out at 6 o'clock that night, when they're about to go on stage at 8, and then I mean, who else? High Fire. To be fair to them, by the time we go over that issue, they were a great band and they were a cracking show. Yeah. But we've had some horror shows as well, haven't we?
Yeah. Probably the worst has to be Batushka, I think.
Fake Batushka, real Batushka.
Whichever of the Batushkas, whichever one we had, whether it's real Batushka, fake Batushka, pretend Batushka, don't care. The Batushka that we had is by the worst experience I've had with a band in the 13 years I've been involved with the festival. Really, it was just a nightmare. They kind of set out very exacting standards, and I can kind of completely appreciate that. A lot of their show is around the theatrics and the kind of the choral chanting singers and the little altar thing in the center and all that. I get all that. So we were as absolutely accommodating as was physically possible. We hired in extra lights for the style of stage. We actually went above and beyond for them in terms of the production stuff. And then no matter what we did on the day, just didn't seem to be good enough for them. And so they were in their dressing room and they said, no, it's not right, but they wouldn't tell us what was wrong. So we had everything, as far as we were concerned, as close to their specs as they wanted. And then they just refused to come out of the dressing room to perform because they kept saying it wasn't right. But again, wouldn't tell us what was wrong. And I lost my shit at them and just kind of said, at this stage, I don't care whether you do or don't play, just make a decision. Because at that point they were about 20 minutes delayed into a 40-minute set.
And it'd been what I remember from that, because I wasn't involved with the production obviously, but what I remember from that is initially being quite excited about that, getting to see this. At the time it would have been the real Batushka, because that was before this sort of nonsense got the band split up. And I was there for the 10th, and you could just see at the beginning it was our crew, and then it was the venues crew, and it was kind of the venues management, and everybody was like, what is going on with this band? They were, and I left because I couldn't even face watching them by the time that they started. I just left the venue, Stylus, and that it was no surprise that everyone who came across them that day had nothing good to say.
No, and that was the thing. I think we had that conversation between the two of us before, and certainly when we kind of prepped our crew, the people who kind of help us out on the day and stuff, we said these are going to be the bands that are going to be the most difficult. And you can get a feeling for a band in terms of if they're particularly kind of pernickety on details and stuff like that they're going to make your day difficult. But just it felt a little bit unprofessional, just the sitting there in their dressing room and not explaining, just kind of saying it's not right. Well, let's try kind of come to a solution. And that's the thing, most of the bands that we've worked with over the years have been fine. You can kind of come to solutions and that kind of thing, and there's a bit of give and a bit of take. But these guys, there was just nothing. It was just kind of radio silence. It's not right, and wouldn't tell us what it was. So I mean, it's not as if I couldn't tell you whether they put on a good show or not. I was just so furious by the end of it. I just kind of, like you, I think I just left and was just like, I couldn't care whether they put on the best show that's ever existed at Damnation.
Yeah, and it's not as if because we deal with bands that have got big production. When Opeth were played, there was a lot needed to happen for that show, even in the way that it was the stripped down version of Damnation. And everything was there. I mean, they're a band that's got every right to be demanding, and we understood that. And it made sure that we had everything in place for them to get on. So it's not as if we won't jump through hoops for bands if we know what hoops we're supposed to jump through.
Yeah, and it's all about that kind of clear communication. Like when we did the Cult of Luna and Judy Christmas show, they had a very particular lighting setup. There was a huge amount of production and lighting production and that. But it was very clear. They kind of explained the remit from early doors and said, look, we're doing these 5 shows or whatever. It needs the whole lighting system is a hugely integral part of it. Nice and early, plenty of emails going back and forth, nice clear communication. Okay, well, we can do that. We can physically fit that on the stage. That one we can't. Okay, that's fine. We'll change it for this, that, and the other. And on the day, there was no problems. It just made everything so much easier. So we will accommodate people, but it's just sometimes there's no accounting for taste.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you handle the production side, because it's bad enough when you get the problems on the day at Damnation with problems you barely understand.
Yeah.
There is well, what did Turisas say about us?
Turisas said it was the worst organised event they'd ever been part of. which is quite a claim to fame.
They fuckers ruined my day. I mean, see that face paint and fucking all over the venue. I spent that day with baby wipes, just following them about, cleaning stuff up. It was like they just
red back face paint everywhere.
They were so unhappy. We maybe never gave them the slot they deserved. They maybe shouldn't have been playing underneath Evil and Grand Vegas, but ultimately we never knew any better, did we? We didn't know that.
And I think they were, because obviously they were on their own tour, and the only reason we had Turisas that year was because they were planning on playing Leeds the exact same night. They said, we're going to do Leeds this night, and just to save any sort of split in the crowd, we said, fine, we'll buy the package for that night. So whether they were expecting it to be a normal headline show for them, that they'd be the top billed band and that they get all the requests and favors that come with being the top billed band, I'm not too sure. And then when they turned up, realized that wasn't the case, that they just decided to kind of make things a bit more difficult. But yeah, we were officially the worst show that they've ever done in their history.
I remember the wee tour manager, and he was so angry, and he's like, oh, this is the worst show I've ever done. I'm like, fuck me, man, you just went on stage at the time you were supposed to go on stage with the equipment that was supposed to be on stage. You just played to 2,000 fans that were gone mental. You came off stage at the time you were supposed to come off stage, and you're selling a bunch of merch. If this is the worst show you've ever done, you've got the fucking luckiest career.
You've had some great shows, yeah. And that's the thing. It was all in all, it was a good, like, Turisas, just not my thing. Do not like the kind of music. But I remember watching some of that show, and just the crowd were going wild for it.
Yeah.
And they were getting a really good response from the Damnation crowd. So what made the actual show?
I've never been so ashamed.
It was us, essentially. It was us. The two of us ruined their day, made it the worst day ever. It wasn't nothing to do with the fans or the sound or any of the rest of it. It was just me and you.
Well, if we ever have them back, we'll make sure that they're treated like the royalty they clearly are.
Yeah.
So
if Turisas' booking manager is watching this right now, we humbly apologise.
Well, sorry. If you thought that was the worst show you've ever done, come back. So personal highlights for you then in your time that you've been involved. I mean, you put the effort in all year, you get involved in it seriously, you don't have a financial stake in it, you get a token payment at the end of it, which in comparison to your salary isn't worth talking about. And so what makes you keep doing it, come back year after year?
I love doing it. I think it's hard to explain. Like, you're the face of Damnation. Everyone kind of knows you. You'll get stopped when you're walking around the crowd or whatever, gavel of the show and that kind of thing. People know you, recognize you. They've kind of seen you around, done interviews, that kind of thing. I like being the kind of unknown person, the other half that nobody knows about, and that there's 4,000 people in a venue because of the work that we've put in over the previous 10, 11 months. I get a weird sense of pride of that. When you see people having a great day, you're like, that's because of what we put in 11 months worth of work to do. Yeah. So it kind of, at the end of it, it kind of makes it all worth it. Plus, as a gig, it's great. We get to play fantasy festivals. We get to sit there and go, who would we want to have? Oh, I'd love to see Amon Ra this year. Okay, let's give their agent a call. Let's see what we can make happen or whatever. It's great that we're able to do that we can pick and choose a festival to suit our kind of interests. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was saying, I think I was speaking to, was it Dave or Gordon, and I was saying that idea that it's a lot about the festival and the humdrum stuff. You think, why are we doing this? I mean, like, we worked all year, and was it 2009? And then at the end of the year, I lost 13 grand. I mean, like, who works all year to lose £13,000? But I mean, it's madness. And there's been other years that just kind of broke even. And I'll be honest, there's years that it's financially made quite a lot as well. So it is swings and roundabouts. But when you're there on the day, it was Dave, because I was talking about Forward when I thought it was that, and you're just like, this is incredible. I mean, this isn't nothing like my day job. It's fantastic.
There's nothing better when you see main stage 2,500 people going absolutely mental, when Adam Frakes kind of has a massive wall of death going right down the middle of the main stage for Stamping Ground or whatever it is, or Raging Speedo coming back, or the Marnier show from Cult of Luna and Judy Christmas. You're like, or the last Bolt Thrower show that's been in Europe or whatever. Just you kind of like, definitely worth it. When you see the kind of the what people get from it, it's like,
So every interview I've ever done for Damnation, I always get asked the same question of, oh, so what's been the highlight, what's been the best band that's ever played? So it's nice for me to bat that one onto you now.
Right. I suppose the kind of Damnation has kind of, I suppose, different phases, I suppose. So if you go way back, I have to say the Stamping Ground show in 2006 in that small downstairs room in Gillies was just wild. It was so violent, just a different level, just the energy in that room. So that one going back to 2006 was absolutely crazy. Carcass's first reunion show 2008, seeing the crowd, that's one of the kind of the things that burned into my memories, kind of looking down from the balcony and just seeing that room rammed with people for Carcass.
Felt like a stadium.
Yeah, it was just unreal seeing. You're just like, holy shit, why is there this many people here for something that we put our time into? Outside of that, I still think Marnier is probably one of the best albums. I don't think there's been a better album released since Marnier. So getting that show was huge. It was brilliant. I'm trying to think, is there any others that have been? The Mistress show, I suppose.
The Mistress show. I mean, Marnier is the correct answer. So if you want to just if you want to leave it as high, Marnier is the correct answer. Julie Christmas with Catalina. I kind of feel sorry for Catalina now because everybody who's heard the new album goes, it's great, but it's no Marnier.
When you do Marnier too,
it's a shame. It's a shame. I think that's going to be a blessing and a curse for that band now. But it was absolutely great. I'm desperately hoping to get an agent on this podcast to kind of bat some of this stuff back for the other side, and I'd love it to be Hayden.
Oh, it'd be good. Hayden would be good if you could get him to open up. Yeah.
So I mean, I've asked him. I think he's kind of like. I think he thinks I'm just trying to chuck folk under the bus here, which is. To
be fair, you've been quite kind so far. You haven't really kind of crucified anyone too bad. So.
Well, kind of point. I was thinking about let's do something to kind of shine a bit of light on some of these folk behind the industry that we're involved in, and try to help each other sort of survive this. I didn't know what I come on and say. Right, tell me what's terrible. I say, as I'm just about to ask you the next question. So there's been many times in the years at Damnation. Quick ones off the top of my head where I've just wanted to give up. It's just not worth it. The 1349 burning that guy in fucking 2007.
Yeah, that was a pretty bad one, yeah.
2011, I mean, Turisas aside, but that whole year. Oh, shit. That whole year, you had to go up and ask Godflesh to cut their session.
I've never kicked a puppy, but having to kind of say to Justin Broderick to cut his set, and the sad face he gave me afterwards when he's like, it always happens to me. And he was so sad and so disappointed that he had to cut the last song out of the Godflesh set because the whole day had ran long.
Right. So basically, Devin Townsend's set was to a video, and we were told by the venue management. It turned out afterwards wrongly that it was a hard curfew at 12. Like that was it. The shutters were coming down, security was leaving, there would be no safety. So we knew that Devin had to be on stage for say 11, and they needed time to change over for Devin's set. And as the day wore on, like the changeovers became 5-10 minutes longer until Godflesh started. So we already knew that our set needed to be 50 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. Well, we've been. A lot of the day ended up getting delayed starting. The main stage ended up being ran a half an hour late because we got everything in and loaded up and ready to go. And then whoever was the production manager of the venue at that time said, my guys haven't had a break yet. They've been in since 6 o'clock this morning. They need to have a half an hour break before the bands all start. So they all down tools for a half an hour. So we started the main stage a half an hour late that day, and then we're trying to claw it back. We were like, okay, we have a half an hour changeover from between this band and this band. Okay, let's see if we can get it down to 20 minutes. And we kept trying to pull it back in because, as he said, at that point we were told midnight, the doors have been shut, everyone has to be out. So we knew we were up against a finite time, and we knew how long Devin's set was going to be. And we clawed a fair amount of it back, but we were still about 10 minutes shy. And so that's why I remember kind of shouting at Justin from his set, and I was just like, that's it, you're done. After this song, you're done. And he was looking over and going, oh, I have one more. I was like, no, you're done.
I mean, I regret that hugely as an experience on our part as well, because what we should have just pushed back with the venue then and said, look, at the end of the day, this is, we bring 4,000 fans into this venue. There's no reason why you can't run an extra 10 minutes. And we'll carry the costs. I mean, if you need to, all the security and the extra hours pay or whatever, we'll carry the cost. It was a bit sad. And I remember getting into the dressing room and giving Justin his side.
I gave him a T-shirt to say sorry for it. And he was so sad.
I wanted to say sorry. I mean, ultimately, what else was I going to give him a high five? So I took down some merch and I just wanted to apologise. It was like it was a tough one because our headline band was basically saying, "Look, well, we will start and we will run over our cup because that's what the video does." So, but I was in the balcony at the time when you went up on stage to try and tap him on the shoulder and say like enough, and I was like, "Oh Jesus, if there's one job I would not want to be doing just now."
Yeah, just going out in front of all those people and just ruining their day, going, sorry, you're having one less Godflesh song, sorry.
Yeah, which that can answer a wee bit of my question I was asking. What other things have happened?
I think for me, last year on the whole was just, it wasn't like, from a fan's point of view, and I guess this is kind of the whole point of it in terms of, I don't know how the fans felt. I think the general reception was that last year was received pretty well. Everyone was pretty positive about it. I think for me, certainly for me, and maybe a little bit for you as well, it had been a long year, a kind of a tough year, lots of haggling and negotiating and kind of dealing with the kind of the various factions and all sorts of silly nonsense going on with McGlaw and all of that kind of stuff. And it just hadn't been an enjoyable year to book and to plan and organize, and trying to fit two rightly equal kind of headliners in terms of like Mayhem could be headline material, Opeth obviously the bigger band financially and the size, so they were clearly the headliner, but trying to accommodate both of them and trying to please everybody and ultimately pleasing nobody, because I couldn't give everyone exactly what they wanted. It was just, I was in Berlin on a stag do about 3 weeks before that Damnation, and spent most of that stag do on the phone to the various parties from both bands trying to negotiate things. And it was just, by the end of that year, I was just like, I'm just glad it's over.
Yeah, and it was, what was sad about that day as well was so many things that happened that were completely out of our control. So we showed up in the day, Opeth have got a mountain of stuff to load in, Mayhem have got a mountain of stuff to load in, and the goods elevator for the first time in every year we've been there is out.
Broke.
So suddenly we've got huge flight cases, amps, everything needs to get loaded round the front and then through into the stairs. So that's like, like bad luck, but we can manage that. Then security decide that there's no pass outs, but unbeknownst to us, so we find out about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock that our fans are going out and then being told they're not allowed to come back in. So then that's a frantic.
I was getting messages on Facebook because I was just kind of seeing our Facebook page just getting tons of messages through, and I was like, that's a bit odd for the day of Damnation. You get them usually the day after, about people saying that was a great day or that was a shite day. But yeah, during the middle of the day, people saying I was feeling faint or I was pregnant and had to go back and get some anti-morning sickness tablets from my hotel room and they won't let me back in. And despite, I went to security repeatedly during that day and said, you never gave us any notices. If we'd known, we could have told everyone there's no pass outs on the day, whatever, make sure you have everything. And repeatedly during the day, they kept saying, oh yeah, we'll relax it for today. You weren't in the know, yeah, we'll let it go. And then just continued all day.
I remember when we were packing up the merch at like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, they were still trying to lock people out before they could. I thought I was getting in a fight with security guys. I was like, you must be joking. How many times do you need to be told the same? And why is this instruction here? It was apparently it came down from venue management that they didn't want people smoking out in the main area. Yeah. So basically, they're saying, "Oh, don't go out and smoke there," which went Chinese whispers for that to fucking you're not allowed back in.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was just so frustrating. And these are the things that are outside of our control that I think probably a lot of people don't realize. I think they assume that it's our security and that they're our teams and stuff like that. They're not. They come with the venue, and we have ultimately health and safety and security trumps anything we say or do on that day. If the head of security says it's not happening, there's nothing we can do about it.
And then what was after that?
Well, so you also had the other issue you had that year is we have around the back of the building. So obviously when all the bands arrive and load in their gear, there's a separate car park where for the last 10 years, we've put tour buses and splitter vans and the bands who turn up in 4 cars or whatever, we put them all, we have the whole car park booked out for ourselves. And that's where all of the bands go to park up because there isn't space around the back for all of the rest of them. And 3 weeks beforehand, they finally told us that actually that's no longer a car park, and they've now started building a new science building or something for the university there. So we had nowhere to park any of the vans. So just everything about that year from a production side of it went to shit.
That's right. Right into some silly things in the day as well. Like they hadn't told the staff that the cleaning, catering, security staff, the OPEF's dressing room was no longer like it was OPEF's dressing room. So people were just wandering into OPEF's dressing room like. The tour manager's texting going, can you please stop these guys in high-vis jackets just walking in there? And just daft things right in that. There was an arsehole in McGlad. It was getting Andy, the artist liaison for the main stage, telling that we should have ran on stage and helped their guitarist with his lead. Why? Surely that's why you've got a crew of 9. You've got a crew of 9, so if your lead doesn't work, then your TM or
your crew will sort that.
Why would our artist liaison run onto stage and start messing about with the side of your guitar? And then Mayhem Sound Desk, they decided they're just going to use their own sound desk and fucking plug it in. So, last year was. I'm kind of glad now that we're talking about last year. This year's not happening.
gives us a year to recharge the batteries. Yeah.
So, I mean, and you're right. People left that day like, oh my god, what a fucking show! This was amazing. It's great. We'll be back next year. And you and I went back to that house and just wanted to cry into a can of cider.
Thank fuck this year is over. It was because I remember at the end of most years for me. I don't know what it's like for you. But most years for me, when you've spent, like, say, from January up to November, you spent 11 months putting this all together, booking it, planning it, going through all the details. And then comes the first Sunday in November, and that all stops. I just sit there and I kind of go into a bit of a slump. I'm like, shit, now what am I supposed to do with my time? I'm so used to being busy doing Damnation. And then we usually say we'll take off till after Christmas. Is kind of usually the plan. Yeah. And most years, I really, not that I struggle with it, but I find that I'm kind of at a bit of a loose end. I'm like, shit, what am I supposed to be doing with my time? I need to be doing something or whatever. I'm not used to having this kind of downtime. Last year, I was just like, I'm so done with the 2019 event that I was happy to have the time off and away from it.
Absolutely. No, I do definitely get that post-event buzz where I'm almost desperate the next day driving back to Glasgow to get in and book the bands, and I'm absolutely fleeing from how good being part of Damnation was. And last year I was happy not to hear about Damnation at all for 2-3 months, and it's odd because I suppose if you were to ask us both at the start of the year, listen, you're going to put on an amazing Damnation, it's going to be sold out. All the band's going to have great sets, but you two are going to have an absolute hellish day. Would you take that deal?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd take that deal. I'd take that deal every day. I mean, I've also done.
I'd take that deal, and to be fair, I think you're quite lucky because most of my shit falls on me on the day of Damnation. It's when you have amps stop working or Mayhem turn up with their own sound desk they haven't properly connected up, so you get sound issues. So anything on the production side, I'm the one who's kind of running around on the day, kind of looking stressed and dealing with it. So it's rare that I get time to actually stop and watch bands. Whereas I suppose for you, you're like, the people are in the venue, there's nothing I can do now. I can't plug in a guitar to save my life. So if it goes wrong, it's on Fro's head. So.
I mean, we obviously have to mention the fire alarm. We can't have a goddamn Damnation can't mention the fire alarm. But it's got to the stage now where if the fire alarm goes, I just gonna put my head down and walk out, because what can you do? I mean, what are you gonna do?
I kind of like, the thing I like about our fans is that they've kind of, it's almost like become a Damnation meme in terms of kind of like people hedging bets. What time's the fire alarm going to go off this year? And the thing that they don't know, probably most people don't know, is that the fire alarm did go off last year, but it was a silent alarm. So for the first time that year, because obviously other years, the last 2-3 years, it had gone off and there was an audible exit. It did go off last year, but it was a silent alarm, so they didn't evacuate the building.
And the official line that we seem to get from the venue management is it's about the basically the build up for smoke machines and the full stages being in use for whatever reason overpowers their whatever system.
It's just there's kind of a few things. There's kind of power issues, and then there's the fog or haze machines kind of generally for some reason with that many people in the building cause some sort of problems for it. So they've been saying they're going to fix it for years, but I think come back November 2021 at some point during that day you'll be out in the cold for 10 minutes.
Good thing it's November in Leeds, Fuck Jesus.
Yeah, so nice and balmy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've gave the venue a wee bit of a kick in the day, but the guys are actually brilliant. I mean, they're amazing.
I have nothing. To be fair, all jokes aside, the venue are brilliant, and we've been there since 2008, and it works so well. Steve, the venue manager, we have a great relationship with him and the team there. They know what to do, and they're a huge part of what I do in terms of my job, because a lot of it is liaising with the production side of Leeds venue and kind of saying, we need to get this in, can you build this in, how much would this cost to get added and stuff like that. And I'm trying to remember the last time they said no to me. They've said, yes, we can do it, but it'll cost an extra $6,000. And then we've turned around and said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
But by and large, if we come to them and say, this band want this or this band want that, the only time they did say that was last year. Because remember, one of the bands for the main stage wanted one of those kabuki drops.
That's right, Mayhem. Drop? Yeah.
So one of the curtain things that comes down as the show starts. And they said, essentially, if you want that, they need to order in a different stage. And the stage that would be able to hold the weight of the kabuki drop or whatever was like an extra $5,000 or $6,000. And we said it wasn't worth it for a 30-second intro.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, they have been absolutely fantastic. Let's play fantasy festivals a wee bit since we're here and we're having this chat.
Good.
So let's say three bands that we're looking to try and book for next year. Now you can do this with your promoter hat on and as your fan hat. But I'm first, and you can't choose the bands that I'm choosing, right? So my fan hat, I would love to see Converge headline, the main stage. I'd love to see Envy either play the main stage or headline Eyesore merch stage. And the band I've kind of really got into lately, the Moth Gatherer. So that's my three choices that I'd love to see. And I'm sure at some stage in the future we will get, I mean, the Moth Gatherer is just a case of, are we willing to pay for a band
when we can do it?
Probably not got a huge following in the UK. The other two is just a case of when we can make that happen. So that's my three. Who you look for?
Right. Because all three of those are excellent choices. So I can see why you went first, because I probably would have stolen Converge from that list. But if we're wanting to keep it separate, I'd love Neurosis. When I saw them last year down in the Kentish Town Forum, they were amazing. They were on. It was probably the best I've ever seen, and they were on such good form. And we came close before. Was it 2011 or 2012?
12 or 13, I think they were going to come across and do their pretty much their only European show at Damnation, Damnation, and for whatever reason it fell through. So it's Neurosis is certainly kind of one of the possibilities. Would love to kind of see them across. I'm a huge Botch fan, you know that. So I'd absolutely love to be able to kind of encourage Botch to get back together and play. And if we're trying to keep it reasonable and sensible, I suppose one band that I'm kind of surprised we haven't actually had yet, that are absolutely right up our street, but we haven't got around to having, is Russian Circles. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really kind of surprised that we haven't had them to kind of headline Ice for merch stage. So I'd probably go for them. If I was going for someone new, the same way you were kind of going for Moth Gatherer or someone kind of a little out there, and I'm going to apologise to them now because they might pronounce it completely differently because they're Danish. LLNN.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's how it's pronounced or whether they're pronounced.
Listen, that's what it says in the fucking poster. LLNN. So
it could be Lund. It could be LLNN. I think they're brilliant. So they're absolutely crushingly heavy. So yeah, would love to see them at Damnation actually.
That would be great. In my promoter's hat, I would like to see Yob. I think they would be good. Not a band I like, but I don't love as much as I love the fucking Moth Gatherer or Envy. Obituary are a band that it surprised me. They've never played Damnation before. We've never really managed to get the tours to sync. And then I always like always like a wee hype band, you know, the band that, even if I'm no into that type of metal, but just like a right bang on trend, as the kids would say, Blood Incantation. That would be.
That'd be a good shout.
There's a lot of folk that are starting to request them. I'm not sure how many or if ever they've played the UK before, but there'd be 3 bands that I think would get a right good reaction.
Yeah.
Do you want to leave the promoter side?
Promoter hat on. Emperor.
Fuck, I am playing like.
Emperor would be a brilliant shout. I had another one there. It's after leaving me now in terms of who else. Honestly, I'm not too sure. Testament.
Testament would be another great shout. Both would obviously need headline, but
headline. So
both probably too expensive now. But aye.
So Emperor, Testament. Because I'm not necessarily a Testament or a thrash fan, but I think they'd probably go down super. Gojira would be good for anyone.
We almost had them a couple of times.
We've come very close on at least 2 occasions.
You were booking both of those occasions, and
I was in kind of. I've been speaking to their agent for a couple of months, and we've been going back and forth on kind of flights. And once you get to the conversations about flights, you're usually in a pretty good space.
Yeah.
And then whatever, I think one of the years, one of the brothers had another event, like a wedding or something, and it was kind of the kibosh was put on it. I'm not sure what's happened the other year, but yeah, like if for anyone who's watching or listening, and if they happen to be lucky enough to be at Hellfest when they did their headline set last year, it was just unreal.
Yeah,
the production.
They're probably one of those bands that now, as of today, maybe.
Too big.
Any
regrets?
Say that again.
Do you have any regrets? Bands that you could have had?
Yes, and just because. Not so much because I'm like, oh my God, that band are fucking absolutely outrageous, and I love them now. But just the bands that have become so massive that I'd like to see him bring the Horizon's name on the 2005 or 2006 poster. I wish I'd kept Architects on the 2007. But with both of those bands as well, there was a very deliberate. I mean, there was another scene happening that time. There was that Ghost Fest scene. And I was very keen to keep Damnation away from that scene and be different. Everybody was trying to be Ghost Fest or a festival like that and doing those events, and I wasn't wanting to just slap Damnation on it. So those, although I'm looking back now in retrospect, it's like, oh my God, I mean, imagine having Bring the Horizon sitting there underneath Charger and Sick. That'd be cranky for the nostalgia sense. And Architects obviously are so massive now that would be great to see them on there with Amen and Creator. But I know there's a band you probably regret that I've never said yes to the fee for that turned out to be massive.
Yeah, well, the one that immediately comes to mind is Ghost.
Yes.
Before Ghost became the biggest band on the planet.
Absolutely. I'm never going to mention anybody's fees in these podcasts because no fair on anyone basically. But what we could have got that band. What we could have got that band for is the equivalent of like a second band on the main stage these days, maybe even a first band on the main stage. And now we would need to sell out Damnation 4 times over to get just them. It would be so they would be great in terms of.
That's the thing. You never know how things are going to turn out, though. That's what it is. Like you never know.
We've had bands that have grown to be too. I mean, Skin Dread could possibly headline a Damnation now. I mean, that's all they could do if they came back, but they'd be expensive. I mean,
it would have to be. Yeah,
they're a bigger band than playing underneath the Haunted. Evil obviously had their thing that they became massive, and then
they had a flair for a while. Yeah,
Dillinger Escape Plan we got at a very reasonable price. So if they were ever to come back, would be pretty huge. And then I mean, I'm pretty chuffed that a festival like Damnation can still manage a band like Opeth.
Yeah.
So at top of somebody. So I mean, I don't kick myself in the. It's not like. There's bands that I thought would be massive. Like I thought Nordic Giants. I mean, I'm not saying that they would be Mogwai, but I thought that they could.
I kind of had that feeling about them as well, that they were going down that kind of Sigur Rós kind of vibe, that they were going to kind of keep going on that upward trajectory. Yep. And that's not to say that they won't. Maybe we were just so far ahead of the curve that just the rest of the world hasn't caught up to Nordic Giants yet. But yeah, I kind of thought they were going to kind of really blow up and become absolutely massive.
Yeah, I mean, they've done well for themselves. That's not to say that they're not a nothing band. They came in the ISO stage and had the
Oh, they're brilliant. I have, absolutely love everything they do.
They're one of those bands that could be like an Explosions in the Sky, Godspeed You Black Emperor, kind of like that, big in the post-rock scene. Obviously, maybe she will for Buttons, and I would give them a left nut to have maybe she will back to play.
Yeah,
so there's been plenty of bookings that have happened down the years that I've been absolutely delighted with as well. Other than Ghost, anything else that stood out?
Anything you think we've done wrong, the way your kind of hindsight glasses, you would change?
Well, yes, lots. I mean, almost in every year there's something that I would probably say. I mean, that jump from 2007 to 2008 was too much, too soon.
Yeah.
And I think it is great, as we say, everybody who went to 2000, not everybody went to 2008, but a lot of people went to 2008 have no complaints about it. Had an absolutely fantastic day, but there's been many people who went to 2008 never returned, and that's that lesson we learned in 2011 when we never had enough space between the bands to claw back the Godflesh. That it'd be difficult for that to happen now. Not that it'd be impossible, but we stagger the stages in a way that even if a band
there's such a massive gap now,
we also pay for all the backline and all the stages. So unless you're a band that can demand to bring in their own drum kit, you kind of need to use ours, and then that saves everything. So there's been, I mean, there's absolutely plenty of things that I feel that we've learned and got better with. And we're not even, we're so much more professional now getting into this year than we would have been 2 or 3 years ago. It's really every year it gets that wee bit better. But I do cringe sometimes when I look back at some of the days where I just wish that we could have done. I mean, Carcass, Pitch Shifter and Cathedral all clashing at the same time.
But again, it's one of those things. That was our first year in that venue, and we didn't even know there was a 4th stage in there at that time. We didn't know any better, and we felt it was probably needed to try offset the massive crowds that were going to want to see Carcass. I
mean, that was health and safety before everything. That was, I mean, it's not as if I was sitting there saying, "Oh, I would like to see all 3 of these bands," but you did get the fright. You're selling 4,000 tickets. You get into one of those rooms takes 500 people. Like, okay, well, that sounds like it could be a lot of people injured. So,
a bit of a problem,
So let's say there's no point having Carcass even in the big room, and then start to get 4,000 people getting to a stage that at a push might take close to 3. So but then the lesson learned. Experience tells you that 4,000 people, not everybody goes to the same stage regardless.
No.
People get drunk, people go to sleep in their own piss. It's like,
And to be fair, we've learned now. We learned from 2014 as well, the overcrowding for the Baltimore year. We rolled back the ticket sales, take a hit on the money that Damnation makes, make it a more comfortable experience for everyone.
Yeah, and that was at the time when anybody was accusing us of anything else. You go to another promoter and sacrifice £40,000 that you know you can have. I mean, you go to anyone. I tell you what, see, to make my next gig more comfortable, can you lose £40,000 in ticket sales? And they laugh at you. But I mean, has Damnation done that? We've done that because I felt that we did lose fans from 2008 who maybe have never came back, and I didn't want to make that same mistake again for 2014. So it seems to be paying off in the fact that we can announce Big Destroyer and sell 700 tickets. So long
it's a kind of a blessing, I think, in some ways, to where we are when you compare it to where Damnation was and how we used to do it. Like this will give people kind of a real insight into how much Damnation was ran as like just amateur hour a lot of the time. Was the begging emails we'd send out to bands in the early days, trying to get them to play and go, hope this finds you well, could you play? We've had this band and this band and this band play. So we kind of have to show our kind of our credentials that we've had. Look, these bands have thought we're not shit enough to play and that kind of thing. Whereas now, because Damnation is kind of known in its own right, you have agents kind of saying, we're planning a tour, we want one of the dates to be Damnation. So you have a lot more of them coming to us rather than us having to go to them, which in some ways makes it a lot easier than having to go with the begging bowl going, please play our little festival.
It was great because, I mean, it gives you at least a hand to play with. I mean, this package that we were talking about, hopefully we'll be able to announce by the mid last September. That's for 3 bands to go and try and get them, that's a lot of money. And you try and pick them up individually, fly them all in, and then somebody say, look, we're trying to route a tour going through Europe, any chance we can stop off at Damnation? You're like, well, that's a lot of work saved. Stick all the guys in the same 2 tour buses, even better.
There you go. Yeah.
That's been great.
Yeah.
In terms of being a wee bit indulgent in this the sense that it's just you and I talking and I'm not wasting a band member's time, I wanted to, if I'm not going to see, I haven't seen you since last
November was the last time we saw each other.
Glasgow just went into a lockdown today, so I don't know when I'm going to see you again. But the crew that we have, I mean, I want to give a shout out to them when we said about Bri.
Oh yeah,
and the legend that he is, but we have got some cracking friends who, like yourself, get involved in Damnation and just kind of get deeper as the years go by. So I want to shout out to Andy, Tom, Wilbur and Sarah for our artist liaison. We won't see you this year, but I hope he's all still available for doing it next year. Our crew, led by our trusted Mike, Graham, Becky, Pete and Nikki, who all show up early in the morning, knock their pan in the full day. Wilbur sometimes puts up his watch and it's like he gets back home at his hotel at 3 in the morning. So they guys are extraordinary. Thank you to them. And then Big Phil, our stage announcer, and our merch girls, our merch girls as we like to call them.
Our wives.
My mum, my wife and your wife. So
it's a proper kind of, and that's the thing. I think maybe there is kind of a misconception with people that they think Damnation is some sort of an organization or there's some sort of degree of kind of professionalism.
No, there's a degree. Right, come on, let's get on. There's a degree of professionalism.
There's a degree of professional, but this is not a professional. This is not what we do. We don't put on multitudes of events. We learn as we go. We make mistakes and we kind of figure it out as we go. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's kind of put together by two of us who don't work in the music business. And then we have our wives making sandwiches at 7 o'clock in the morning for the bands. And and our friends help lift flight cases.
It's cheeky. Bob, my old man, doesn't deserve a shout out because he used to work. He went and collected the Haunted at the airport. He used to butter the sandwiches. He used to lift and shift. These days, he shows up with a case of Carlsberg, sits at the merch stall and gets fucking drunk. So, Bob, this is you not getting a shout out. Is there anything else?
I was curious to know how you found doing the podcast, because you've had, I suppose, where I've been kind of sitting around scratching my arse with nothing to do because I've been missing my kind of that Damnation fix. You've obviously turned that energy into the podcast. So I was curious how you found doing the podcast so far.
It's been fun. Jesus, talk about. I mean, I'm not great. Also, not great with production and festivals, but I'm not great with IT, which you clearly know. I don't. Sure. I took a holiday. Would that be about a month ago? And I said, I'm going to give myself a couple of days, and I'm going to learn about podcasts. You know, I buy this mic. I'll get a ring light. I'll learn about podcasts. And I wasted 2 days. I was useless. I could not upload any video. I didn't know how to make the audio work. Thankfully, Bride, our graphic designer, stepped in and helped me at the last minute. But the actual interviews themselves, I mean, it's unusual. I mean, unusual. I've got 20 years of journalism and I've got 15 years of music promotion and quite a niche scene. And I thought if I can get folk to come and talk to me, I'll have an interesting chat. At least I hope that. So it's been great. The feedback's been a lot better than what I expect. I'm a journalist. I'm a newspaper editor. So in my real job, I get 100% negative feedback. I am a scumbag in everyone's eyes. I mean, I am just out to ruin people's lives. And then you get Damnation where the split's more 70% positive, 30% negative.
70% scumbag.
We eat a fair amount of shit, but it's nothing like my journalism career. And then this has been, I've not had I feel it's a wee bit fake because I feel you're only kind of made it when people start to tell you you're shit at something, but it's all positive. It's all, the ratings have been good, the feedback on YouTube's been good. I've got a bit of a weird, I read up a wee bit about podcasts before I started, like what you need to aim for. And the figures are quite depressing when you get here, but it's like about 80% of your stuff will go through iTunes. And trust me, people are interested. That's being so contrary. We are Spotify. It's like iTunes gets like fucking 30%. And I thought, well, if no one else listens, at least my pals in Glasgow will listen. But the audience seems to be, despite getting across like 36 different countries at this point. Islington, Blackheath, and Maidenhead. Is Maidenhead London as well?
Maidenhead is Maidenhead London, or is that in Buckinghamshire? Is that where?
Well, I mean, I had to look at Blackheath. I didn't know where Blackheath was. I knew Islington was in London.
Blackheath is London. Yeah, Islington is London. Maidenhead, don't know. You're asking an Irish guy, I don't know.
I know, a Scottish guy and an Irish guy trying to fucking figure out the geography of England. But 30% of everybody who's listened have been from those areas. In Glasgow, in comparison to the 30%, is 1%. 1%. Yeah. So what you hear about Scottish people with tight
and how much of that 1% is you just listening back to yourself?
I know, probably it's just me. I can't get my wife to listen. It makes sure it's fucking Glasgow. Come on, support your own kind, man.
Support your boy, yeah.
But more importantly, thank you to whoever the hell who's listening. I don't know if I know anyone from Islington, Blackheath, or Maidenhead, but thank you so much for the hundreds and hundreds of downloads. It's been great, and I fuck you, Glasgow. Yeah. And on that note,
I shall let you go off and enjoy your evening.
I know we came on here to say I just break the bad news to everybody, and I hope that this podcast is purely for a Damnation fan. I mean, if you've kind of come in here hoping for Slipknot stories and what's happening with booking Manowar,
yes, the wrong one.
I'm afraid you've just got us two absolute roasters. So it's been fun. This is sort of the hat. I'm going to do 10 of these and then see where I'm at. So this is the halfway mark, and hope everybody's enjoyed it. It's been good to see you, mate. All right?
Yeah, and you too, mate.
Speak to you.
All right.